Hello. So Josephine today has questions about how the Master of Divinity works and what classes you register for and what the different years look like. Anything else?
Yeah, I'm curious about the relationship between electives. Both the electives that are Divinity School specific and then also outside of Divinity School, how that fits into the program and where you take those classes throughout the 3 years. That's one of the questions. And the second one I have is the relationship of work study in relationship to field work. Because I'm a little confused about how coursework, field work, and work study can all complement each other.
Gotcha. Just a few things. So, um, let's start out by talking about, I believe I directed you to the Master of Divinity, the course audit form. And that kind of lays out like what are the required courses and what are the courses, like the space for electives you have and how many courses you need to take to fulfill a concentration. But I'm wondering, Angela, if you could talk a little bit about the schedule for the first semester, what that looks like in the fall.
Sure. As a full-time degree-seeking student, you would typically register for a minimum of 12 hours. And two of those classes, 3 credit hours each, would be the history of global Christianities and Hebrew Bible. And those would be 6 hours of your 12 hours in your fall semester. And then you would be eligible to select for your 2 remaining classes, either electives or another required course that you would need to teach or take. The teaching of those classes typically happen, of the 2 foundational courses, happen on alternate days. They usually Monday and Tuesday. So one will happen Monday, Wednesday, the other will happen Tuesday, Thursday. So you are there on campus most during that first year because of the foundational courses. Your electives can be in early or late, it's up to you. And they are also used to fulfill requirements for your concentration of choice. Some of them, though, are required courses too that fulfill your concentration. So for example, if you're an MDiv, pastoral theology and care, the required course as an MDiv. It also fulfills part of the pastoral care and prophetic leadership concentration, and also in chaplaincy. It's a requirement for the chaplaincy. So you can see how some of these courses may have dual purpose throughout the degree. The concentrations are laid out in such a way that they won't eat up all of your electives just for a concentration. So that's how those courses would play themselves out. And then similarly, in your second semester of your first year, History of Global Christianities 2 and New Testament is a requirement for MDivs. Those are also similarly scheduled for the first year students. And so once again, you would be on campus more the first year than you would be in subsequent years. Does that answer your question about requirements and concentrations, or do you have a follow-up to that?
That's clarifying, especially in relationship to the days of the week, like being there. Like I should plan, of course, we're seeing what happens this fall and spring, but in a normal semester, it's going to be 4 days a week, fall and spring.
And typically those are morning courses.
Okay.
You know, they might be in the 9 to 10 or 10:30 slot. And so, or 10:30 to 11. So if you wanted to make sure your other two courses for the purposes of working that first year were also seminars or courses that were in the morning, then that could free up your afternoons. So you might have to be on campus most days of the week. We don't have Friday courses except for language courses. Excuse me. So you could free up your afternoons either to work or to study, however you want to do that. So you can be strategic in how you pick your courses for your schedule. Other semesters, subsequent years, you could be more picky about days of the week that you're on campus and how you structure that. But that first year, it might be more about what time of the day you're on campus as opposed to how many days you're on campus. As for your field ed question, the field education is a course for which you get credit. That course requires 8 to 10 hours of internship, if you will, or placement a week. So that's outside of class. That's either in a congregational setting, a nonprofit setting, and really, you imagine it, in our field education placement supervisors usually make it happen. Vicki Matson and Trudy Stringer are the directors of our field education program, and they have been in the Nashville area a minimum of 20 years. They've both been in congregational ministry and in hospital chaplaincy. And so their connectedness is quite strong. And we have had students work in everything from the Nashville Food Project, suicide prevention hotline, to congregations throughout the city, and also on campus.
I think Alive Hospice.
Alive Hospice, hospitals, lots of different options there. We've had folks who are interested in campus ministry do placements with different undergraduate, director of campus ministry and things like that. So there are lots of options based on that. And so you have to do 8 to 10 hours at that facility in that placement site for a week. Now, the way that plays with work study is a little different. They do ask, field education asks that placements pay a small stipend to students since it is during class time. Not all of those placements are able to do that. So there have been occasions where, with the permission of campus financial aid and our business officer and Professor Matson and Stringers, where they have worked to make sure that your federal work study could be used if needed to help pay you for that time. Or another option is you have that and they pay you a small stipend, and then you can also use your federal work study on campus.
Okay.
And have a job there too. So that's another option. But lots of our students, I would say probably 95% of our students work some sort of job and go to school. Is that helpful?
Yeah, definitely.
Perfect.
Awesome. Did we miss anything?
I do have a question. So the field education, is that 2 semesters that's needed? And that's the second year is usually when that field education is done?
Yeah, the way it typically works is the first year you start having conversations with the field education directors, just in terms of discernment, what your own vocational goals are, what your interests are. And then once you settle on what your field education will be, and you're actually able to do 2 different ones, one per semester, or you can do the same one for both semesters, which gives you, it's just 2 different experiences. And you have the option to do it again. You can take additional semesters of field education your third year, but that's optional. That's if folks want additional training. And then you go through the 8 to 10 hours. And then also, as Angela mentioned, you have the coursework alongside, which helps with the theological reflection and hearing from your classmates and what they're learning as well during field education. It's a really good experience.
So it's sort of set up like, I think Vicky and Trudy call it action, reflection, action. So this sense of, I'm in this placement, I'm doing these things, I'm part of this work, and then you come back to your cohort, your group, your field education group, and you reflect. There will be a couple of case studies that you will write throughout the semester. When they come, each person will share at least one during the semester. You will reflect on that together, something that comes up for you during your time in that placement, or something that comes up for them. And then you'll reflect on that as a group. They have a whole model that they implement. And then the idea is that then after taking that reflection in, you would then go back into the placement and continue to work that sort of theological reflection and engagement out in your placement as you do what you're doing. So like, for example, I am one of the people who did all of the field education you could possibly do. I loved it. It was so important for me to work on me and for me to work some things out as well, just in my doing and being. And so I did my first year as a congregational placement. I did another additional semester at a live hospice as a chaplain there. And then I did a summer CPE unit, clinical pastoral education unit, for which I additionally was able to receive 6 credit hours toward my degree program because it was a full-time summer unit at Vanderbilt Children's Hospital as a chaplain. And so just because you take additional semesters doesn't mean that it was like, for me, I did the chaplaincy concentration. All of that sort of worked toward my concentration and fulfilling my credits. And it gave me my praxis fulfillment requirement. So you can be a person who does just the 1 year because you know this is what you're doing, you're going to fulfill it and this sort of thing, or you can sort of spread out. You can try different things and see where life and vocation takes you. So those are the opportunities at the Divinity School.
I do remember you also asked about electives from other schools within Vanderbilt. And I believe you can take up to 12 credit hours externally, which would be 3 courses, basically 4. Is that 4? I can do math. Amazing. 4. They just have to be a certain catalog level. So they still have to be graduate level courses. I believe there may be some way, if you wanted to do an undergraduate course, of adding additional work that would bump it up to graduate level, but that involves working out something personalized with the professor as well as the office of the registrar, and that's an assistant dean of academic affairs conversation. But that does give you some space to do, for instance, Peabody has a nonprofit management course that you could take. The Owen School of Business has some really interesting courses that you could take. And of course, the College of Arts and Sciences, a lot of the courses from the GDR and the College of Arts and Sciences are cross-listed with the Div school. So it counts as a Div school course, but there may be courses that are not cross-listed that you might want to take. So that's kind of like the fun, exciting piece. Angela, did you take any courses outside? Oh, goodness.
I did not take any courses that were considered outside courses because a lot of the courses that I took were considered cross-listed.
Okay.
So those don't count against your outside courses. Peabody has a lot of leadership courses that people take too. That's a good option.
And we do have jointly appointed faculty between different schools. So the graduate school, the College of Arts and Sciences, we have a lot of cross-listed folks there. We have cross-listed folks at Peabody as well. And also I think maybe at the medical school too, there may be some like jointly appointed, especially like medical ethics folks. So go wild. That part's really fun.
I'm just kind of sifting through things because I've been offered scholarship funding, and then I know that scholarship funding needs to go towards things that apply to the divinity school for the Master of Divinity degree. And so in the context of a scholarship, then I have those 12 electives, or 12 credit hours. 12 credit hours, which roughly comes out to 4 courses. But if I take something that's cross-listed as an elective, it's going to count towards the degree.
Yeah, so the way that works, I believe, is that you get charged the same price that the Div school course would be at the other school, even if they technically charge a different rate, usually more, at the other professional school. And if it's a course that your advisor has approved, then your Div school merit award does apply.
Okay.
Towards that. So you're not going to have to pay for that unless you like exceed your 12 credit limit or your advisor doesn't approve it or any of that. But generally speaking, there's not a problem.
Well, Angela had mentioned about language classes on Friday, and I'm curious about how taking different languages fit into either a Master of Divinity or electives.
Is PCUSA, and they require all of the languages for their ordination purposes, and that's why I was sort of edging her to go. But they are not language courses are not required as part of either of the degree programs, so they would be electives if you decided to take them. We have, Biblical Hebrew, Koine Greek, Ugaritic, Akkadian, Aramaic. I'm sure I'm forgetting some. Latin.
There's something else too.
There's so many of them. All of our biblical studies faculty are language geniuses. Annalisa Azzoni speaks all of the writes of them. She's a goddess, I will say that. But yeah, so they would be electives, but if that was something that mattered to you to take, it wouldn't be a problem. And they're offered sequentially, so like semester 1 is offered in the fall and semester 2 is offered in the spring. It's sort of like it's set up like a foundational course in that sense.
And the way that the language courses are timed in the day is they are pretty early in the morning. At least I think Hebrew has been. And
Usually
so that's
like
kind
8,
of nice.
9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. And that's 3 days a week because languages, you know, it's hard to learn just 1 day a week or 2 days a week. And so those are set up so that you can do them while you're doing all of your other coursework as well. They don't generally interfere in foundational coursework, for instance, since it is considered, those are considered foundational for particular traditions. So I do feel like the Episcopal Church requires it. Lutherans require a lot of Greek. Yeah. And PCUSA requires Hebrew and Greek. So there are definitely certain folks that would be going through languages at the same time as you.
So in that case, those can count towards the degree, especially if it's in relationship to ordainment. But if I want to take something like Spanish courses, continuing education already done, that's going to be an elective. Perfect. This is so clarifying.
That's good. Well, you know, it's a lot of people do like the MTS or the MDiv in preparation for a PhD. And so taking other languages that would be helpful in the pursuit of a PhD is definitely something that folks do.
Also, the university offers summer reading courses at no charge, but they do show up on your transcript having taken them, which is lovely for if you're thinking of doing either further graduate work or you want to further your work in a particular language. There's no charge, and it will show on your transcript. This is helpful for folks who do want to do PhD work, in the sense that oftentimes they have to show basic understandings of, you know, like German or whatever, depending on their area of study. And to be able to do this helps them be able to show their capability in that. But it's available for all folks. You don't have to be on a particular academic path. You can just take advantage of that as a student at Vanderbilt.
Mm-hmm.
And those summer reading courses, are they for people who already have a foundation in the language and then want a further competency?
That's my understanding, is that you have like or sometimes like it might be like a basics German or a beginning German class or a beginnings Latin course. And then, and you build on that just for, you know, to be fluent in the ability to read and understand the language. It's not necessarily spoken, some of them, and then others of them, it's more about speaking the language. It just depends. But for those academic courses, like readings courses in German or Latin or whatever, those exist. I think both for folks who want to begin to understand it, and for those who have a basic understanding who want to develop it further. I think those two both exist. Dean Victor Judge, the assistant academic dean at the Divinity School, is a wonderful resource on what is available as far as courses across campus, and what and how it will count in your degree. He's often very willing to set up a time to sit down and talk you through what's still needed to fulfill your degree requirements, what your options are for electives. Vanderbilt has built into what they call their student landing page, what they call a degree audit. So they'll go through and look at it, and what they imagine will fulfill something will check a box, but it being automated doesn't mean that it's always, as a computer system, aware of the nuance of what the course is. And so Dean Judge can sit down and say, well, this actually will count, or whatever. So he's very helpful in talking with students and helping them understand what's available and where their degree progress stands.
Yeah. He's great. Anything else we missed?
Well, I'm also wanting to do chaplaincy. That's, I know, is going to be a concentration of mine. So I'd love to take advantage of asking some questions to Angela, since that's what you had done as well. And I'm interested in death doula work as well. So this is really wonderful. I'm curious if the summer work you did in clinical pastoral education, if there was a stipend associated with that. And then I also am a little unclear about how coursework in the summer works in terms of listing in classes, funding, costs, that kind of thing.
So I'll answer the second part first, and then I'll answer your first question. The way funding works is if you are registered for courses toward your degree, your merit award counts toward your summer registration. As far as the CPE unit, it's one of the things that ACPE, that's the accrediting body, is working on, because right now there is no funding for the summer unit, the single summer unit. And it's been sort of some feedback that they've received, as you can imagine. It's hard for folks to do something 40 hours a week for 11, 12 weeks and not be paid. And so it comes out of it started, as most seminaries did, starts in a time when most folks were pastoring churches, or they were affiliated with a denomination, and the denomination was sort of helping the student through a particular thing, through their track toward ordination. And that's not always the case now for folks who do CPE. Some are, but others aren't. And most don't help during the summer. So that is one of the difficult things, is that CPE, the first unit, is not paid. And you can either do it all in 12 weeks as a full-time unit, or a lot of places have what's called an extended unit that's over like 22 weeks, and you do it part-time. So there are options. It just depends on how you want to do it. It could, the part-time could also be done over the academic year, or portion of the academic year, where you would have work study, or not everybody works on campus. Some folks have off-campus jobs too, and that's perfectly fine as well. But the residency, which is the 4-unit part of CPE, so you have to do the single unit first, and then a 4-unit, and that is paid. That they have an annual stipend that goes with that, but the single unit is not paid. And I do not believe you can use work study for that.
So there's 4 units that are required for the CPE residency. The first unit, there's no funding for that one.
The first unit is standalone, so it's its own unit, and that's 1. And then your second unit through your 5th unit is the residency. It's
I see.
4 additional units. And if you want to be what's considered a board certified chaplain, you have to do it all. And then there's some writing and stuff like that. But most folks who are going into chaplaincy, especially like end of life chaplaincy or death doula, we have an alum who's doing some of that work in California right now. So we could put you in contact if you were interested in that. But they usually do all 5. The first unit, which is no payment, and then 2 through 5, which are a paid residence.
And then how does coursework fit into those CPE units?
So typically the first CPE unit can be done over a summer, or and it will either be done over a summer, so in between first or second and third year of your MDiv. You can decide how that works best. And it you would apply to it as its own thing. So it's Vanderbilt offers coursework, but you have to apply and be accepted to like the Nashville cohort, or you can apply to something if you wanted to say go home for a summer, wherever home is. You could apply, and there's at the ACPE website, there is a listing. You go in and type in the state, and it will list all of the ACPE sites in whatever state and what the options are. And and you can apply to those, and you apply to them. And then once you complete it, you request that they send confirmation you completed it back to Vanderbilt. And then the credit hours will be transferred into your degree program as coursework. Because CPE is usually 8 hours a week of course group work, and then 32 hours a week minimum of clinical placement, being at the clinical site itself. That's sort of how that works as becoming course credit. As far as the actual like field ed, that all of those steps wouldn't be necessary, because that's something that's in-house. Vanderbilt does it in-house. But once CPE is part of it, we offer course credit, but you go through the application process for the actual site outside of the divinity school.
I understand this more. So it's a 40-hour job, hence why the summer is really important to do it. Then you do that first unit, and you do that as coursework in the Master of Divinity. But to go on as a chaplain to do the residencies, that can be done when you're finished your degree.
Right. Most people will finish their MDiv, say, in May, and then a residency begins late August, early September, and it's for the full calendar, the next full calendar year. And so that's usually how folks do it, not always, but it's that next full calendar year. So you're leaving from the MDiv and going into the residency. And then as the residency starts to wind down, folks start applying for positions wherever, or going on to do their work. And so that's sort of how that timeline works. Once you've graduated with the MDiv, moving into the residency portion of the vocation. Is that helpful?
This is so helpful. Thank you so much, Angela and Laura, for taking the time to answer these questions.